Distracted Media. I'm Zachary Rossiter.
And I'm Kyle Wiseman.
And today we are going to be doing a Batman-themed episode.
I'm Batman.
I got the t-shirt ready for it.
I've never really... I know you've had problems with how they've handled Batman in the recent, so I think you've probably wondered, how would you handle it, but I always wonder how I would personally handle Batman movies or Spider-Man movies or anything. I always wonder, how would I do it, and I always elaborated on it to myself and stuff like that and come up with these really convoluted fucking filled stories and stuff myself.
So this kind of episode is about how...
Our imagination.
Yeah.
Imagination. It's about just, it's fun.
How would we choose, what kind of Batman would we choose, what kind of actors would we choose, and...
how would we pitch a movie to a producer, a Batman movie?
Plot-wise and direction-wise, stuff like that.
So we got 3 topics we're going to handle, and then we're going to give a recommendation, as always.
As always, second episode.
All right. You think you're funny? All right, so for the first topic, Kyle, who would you cast as Batman?
This one I had 2 different choices. I would choose Michael C. Hall or Michael Fassbender.
For the people who don't know, some people, I think everybody knows Fassbender, but...
Michael C. Hall played Dexter in that series, in the eponymous, I think it's called, or whatever. The eponymous series, Dexter. So basically, he played a serial killer who only killed bad guys, if you will, like other killers or
rapists, things like that.
But he would only do so as one side of his personality, whereas the other side, he has to pretend that he's normal to the rest of the world. So I thought...
He's actually working for the cops.
Yeah, well, he's a blood spatter analyst. So I thought Michael C. Hall would be a great choice because of his double-sidedness. With 2, maybe you can even say 3 different facets of his personality. One as a protector of the law, which is Batman. One as
kind of a dark figure who's got a secret, secret rage, kind of.
So this would be our Batman. So our murderer is Batman, but then one as a public figure who has to appear like the nice, quiet Dexter Morgan. So
he would have to break into grounds. I haven't personally seen him play yet, though, but the Playboy Bruce Wayne, he would have to show at least. I haven't seen him portray any characters such as this. But I think Michael C. Hall is an amazing actor. I don't think you have a problem with this.
No. And there are some dark facets to Michael C. Hall as an actor, such as the cancer scare that he had several years ago while he was working on Dexter, actually. So I think that kind of stuff, his own personal experiences, would also lend itself to playing such a dark central figure in Gotham.
On that note, though, so you don't think the fact that he had cancer, I don't mean to be offensive, but the fact that he had cancer, you don't think that would take a physical toll on him to play Batman? Because Batman is a very physical character. He's someone who needs to be able to do pretty crazy stunts, have a look of physique about him. You'd obviously have to change your diet, you'd have to work out intensively, and you'd have to start taking classes on how to do these stunts.
Yeah. I definitely believe that he'd be able to handle those kind of stunts. So Michael C. Hall's actually in decent shape himself. I think he just takes care of himself in general. I don't think there's any physical requirement for Dexter. But if he was given a training regimen like Hugh Jackman or Ben Affleck in the previous Batman.
Hopefully they wouldn't make him look like that, though. Ben Affleck's, that's a good Frank Miller Batman. I think it's perfect for that kind of Batman. But I just can't see Michael C. Hall playing the gritty Frank Miller Batman. In fact, I don't think I'd want to.
I don't like that Batman. But I think given the right personal trainer, diet, all that kind of stuff, Michael C. Hall would definitely be beefy enough for the role.
It's something that hasn't really been touched on with Batman yet. that I've always liked is the fact. I'll sum it up in a quote. He says, Superman. He says, "The reason," he goes, "You want to know why I beat you, Clark? You want to know the reason? Because I might get this quote a little wrong. He goes, the reason I beat you is because deep down you're a good guy, and deep down I'm not." And I think that's a really important part of Batman's character, is that he enjoys beating the shit out of these criminals. He actually enjoys it, whereas Superman doesn't. So I think Michael C. Hall, with his role that he's played in Dexter, has shown he can play a person who gets enjoyment out of people's anguish, right? And you see that in his his smirkiness and stuff like that. And I think, just like if you saw him under the cowl grinning as he's beating the shit out of someone, I think that would really play itself.
The way he watches serial killers from a distance, and he's getting excited for the kill.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
Fassbender, you said?
I said Michael Fassbender. There's two reasons for this. The other one you'll see shortly. But the main reason I chose Michael Fassbender is because I've seen him play versatile roles. Like, he's a very versatile actor. So, for example, I would take my favorite performance of his, X-Men First Class, as the fractured Magneto, who kind of bounces back and forth between good and evil, if you will. But in my opinion, he makes it very gray. He really dims the line between the two.
You kind of agree with him at a lot of points in that movie.
Yeah, I found myself cheering for Magneto rather than Xavier, and that's certainly not a good thing, I guess.
Well, it's a testament to humans and who we are, but it's also a testament to his acting ability.
Yeah,
right.
He
shows that the world isn't as black as white as you think through his acting ability, and that is something else. It's something in and of itself.
Yeah,
you know, he's a phenomenal actor, and not to mention, I do agree, I would love to see Fassbender taking a role of Batman, because he's got the facial features for Batman, for one,
the height and build.
Yeah. He's got the physical features, yeah, and he's just got that jawline, and he's got that fucking, like, grizzliness about him. I could definitely see him under the cowl, man. I could definitely see him with a bunch of fucking scruff and just, like, fucking tearing into a motherfucker.
We've seen him play the like, businessman kind of role as well. And I wanted to mention Prometheus, because I actually love this role in Prometheus. I know a lot of people weren't too big on that movie.
I like Prometheus. I wouldn't recommend watching the sequel.
Oh, Alien Covenant?
Yeah.
That was bad. That was really bad. But in Prometheus, he's playing, I don't want to give any spoiler, but
I think you're fine.
He's kind of like,
it's distracted media. I don't want to spoil.
He's kind of like a robot, or synthetic, I guess would probably be more accurate. So he's not an actual human, so he had to suppress his real emotions in order to play that kind of character really well. And I think he does a phenomenal job in that role.
I think that also is a testament to Batman. I know that a lot of people might disagree with this, but I think Batman as a character needs to be able to suppress his emotions to be able to do the things that he's able to accomplish. And I think that, once again, Fassbender has shown that he can handle multiple layers of Batman's character.
Yeah.
And just physically, he would be able to handle that kind of role. The only thing I would say against Fassbender is that...
Be careful with these words.
He's never really gotten the American accent down right. And I feel
this is true.
But I've seen him... I'm not going to say what movie it is because I'm actually going to bring it up later. But I've seen him do a role where he isn't good at the American accent, playing an American, and it didn't really bother me too much because he's just such a good actor.
Yeah.
Right? So, I feel like he's still a great pick for the role. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's pretty much it. I think either of those actors could play the role quite well, so that's why I had a toss-up between them. I couldn't really choose. All
right, my pick for Batman, forgive me if I butcher this name. I think it's Scandinavian, so, Alexander Skarsgård. You may know him from True Blood.
Sure, I think that's how most Americans would pronounce it anyway.
Yeah. And he also played, unfortunately, the Tarzan in the new Tarzan movie. But I didn't watch that movie because that looked real bad. That said, I still think he's a great actor. And he was also in a new Netflix movie, Mute. It seems pretty, like it's going to be a pretty good movie. I haven't watched it yet. But I think I've seen the trailer on it. Anyway, Alexander Skarsgård, in my opinion, is not the greatest actor in the world. I think he's a good actor.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like Gary Oldman, for example. However, I don't think Robert Downey Jr. is a great actor either. But I do think Robert Downey Jr. is a great Iron Man. And I do think Alexander Skarsgård would be a great Batman. He's got that ability to play kind of the grizzled side of Batman. I haven't seen him do anything with the Playboy side, but I think Playboy is probably the easiest side of that character to handle. And I've seen him play kind of a damaged person as well. And while he probably wouldn't be able to do many different types of roles with this, I think the way he acts perfectly complements who the character of Batman is.
This is where we kind of disagree, because I like him as an actor. I hated True Blood as a show, but he was one of the best things. He was one of the best things about it. As Eric, is that his name? Yeah. I think he's a decent enough actor, but for one, you need like superior acting chops to pull off a character like Batman, multifaceted character like Batman, I should say. But also, I don't really see the fit. Like, you think he's built for this role?
I do. I think that the way he acts, the way he's got a bit of a calm demeanor, and he kind of less is more with his acting. I find it's more about subtlety than it is about kind of theatrics and things like that. And I feel like that's what you need in a Batman. For the Batman I want.
You definitely don't want a theatrical styled actor.
Yeah. And I just think he, not only brings the way this is the way I read Batman. When I read a comic and I read the way Batman is, I always pictured it exactly as he's acting. So that's where my bias comes into play with him. Plus, he is fucking huge. And that's just a little extra. He's like 6'5".
He's fucking huge.
He's fucking built. He's got a giant fucking jawline. Like, you put the cape and cowl on him, I'd be fucking scared to see that guy in the dark alley running at me in the cape and cowl, man. I think I'd fucking shit myself.
I've never committed another crime again.
Put that Twinkie down.
Gluttony's a sin.
But no, I do think he isn't the greatest actor, but he fits the role, So yeah, I never really thought I would have thought of him, but the day I remember the day I thought of it, I was just I haven't been able to push another actor into that role in my mind. So I mean, that's a testament to of itself.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, next topic. Which villain would you choose? Why? And is there a certain actor that's kind of swaying this opinion, if that's the case?
Okay. I would choose Scarecrow if I was developing my own Batman movie. And I don't even know how to describe it. I liked Nolan's Batman, or Nolan's Scarecrow, but he didn't seem psychotic or psychedelic enough, if you will. So
I agree. Although the actor who played the Scarecrow,
he's good.
I can't remember his name now, but he's also in the Peaky Blinders TV show. He's
in
Cillian
Inception
Murphy.
too.
Cillian Murphy.
He's in Inception as well.
Yeah, he's a great actor, and he fits the role. I just wish he had been given more to work with.
Yeah, I agree. Though they did bring him back for the second and third movie. No one loves this guy.
Yeah. Well, he uses him in a lot of his movies because he understands that this guy's got talent. And I agree. He's got talent.
Yeah. But yeah, I would choose Scarecrow just because I think you can really get into the psyche of Batman through his character.
Kind of attack Batman on a different kind of front.
Yeah, and if instead of going on the physical front, like Bane was primarily a physical challenge, if we're being honest.
Joker's more of a moral issue.
Yeah, you have the issue of moral, like, do I kill this guy in order to save thousands or hundreds at least?
Yeah.
But here on Scarecrow, we can actually attack a mental issue. This is a villain that Batman can't really defeat just like through his fist.
We'll get into that when we talk about the story.
Yeah. But okay. So yeah, I would choose Scarecrow because it'd be a different type of villain.
Yeah.
For Batman to face. But also, I think I would choose for an actor James McAvoy. I think with James McAvoy. Now, this was the second reason that I had said Michael Fassbender, because the two of them played off each other so well in X-Men. Whereas you had Fassbender as your misunderstood villain, and McAvoy as like just their dedicated goody hero.
Now you got Fassbender as a misunderstood hero, going against the kind of psychotic villain.
Yeah, so I think that would be a good pair up for that. But even if you had Michael C. Hall in the role of Batman, I just think James McAvoy has proven himself as a fantastic actor.
He is. He's one of the more underrated actors in Hollywood right now. I think he should get a lot more roles than he's getting. Yeah. Whether or not that's through his own choice or through, the producers and stuff, I think he is one of the best. And I think that Split, I think that was the movie.
I really didn't like that movie.
I think it's a testament to how he could use Scarecrow, though.
But he was the best actor in that movie. And he shows many different personalities. He's got schizophrenia, right?
Yeah, multiple dimensions to different characters.
So that really just shows how versatile as an actor he is. So I really do think James McAvoy would be able to play this psychotic, like demented Scarecrow as a Batman villain, but also the psychiatrist side, working at Arkham or Blackgate.
Yeah. Had to play a bit more professional.
So you had more of a professional
monster
doctor
hidden underneath the monster, kind of like a Mangala, kind of.
Like Batman, you would need a multifaceted actor who can play multiple roles, and I think James McAvoy would be a good choice for that.
I agree. He's like I said, he's a really underrated actor. I think he could easily bring more into a character that hasn't really been shown much on the silver screen. But if we'll talk about it when we get into the story now in a bit. But we will address what we've seen the Scarecrow in, and maybe how we'd handle the story itself with James McAvoy. But first, I'm gonna tell my villain choice for a Batman movie. I would choose Mr. Freeze because, for one, I think he's a phenomenal character. I put him up as high as characters like Magneto and such. Vader, I think he hasn't been utilized correctly. And
that's seen a lot, but I agree.
Second, he's not only not been done justice, but his character has almost been spat on, in my opinion. I think there are funny things about Batman and Robin the movie, and some of Arnold Schwarzenegger's puns are that. But I felt like you could have easily done that with a different villain. There are a lot of campy Batman villains that, like the Riddler, yes, Two-Face, Joker, you can do campy things. But I've always felt personally that Mr. Freeze is more of a serious character. And he's got a really serious story behind why he's acting the way he is. So when you put him in a movie where he's trying to raise money to save his wife and Batman's like, I'm going to kick your ass instead, I think it's kind of an insult to the story as a whole.
I can understand your perspective on that, but I think that movie itself, that movie and the one before, were not meant to be serious.
No, they're meant to be commercialized, but my point is they should have picked a different villain.
Maybe, yeah.
I think that they shouldn't have used Mr. Freeze.
They use a lot of Batman villains already, though, if we're looking at all four of those.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Mr. Freeze. I would definitely choose Mr. Freeze. Like I said, he's one of my favorite, if not my favorite Batman villain. And I would choose Benedict Cumberbatch.
Which I thought was an odd choice.
I think he'd be perfect for the role. I know he's already doing Doctor Strange right now, but I think Benedict Cumberbatch, just his...
Marvel, DC, you can have him.
Yeah. His presence as an actor, for lack of better words, and forgive me for the pun, he's got a bit of coldness about his character. He does, though. Like, the way Benedict Cumberbatch speaks, just his presence is very looming, almost, very deep voice, but it's very calm. And, he's got that lanky figure, and he's got a really, I'll say, to be nice, original face. Like, it's a very different kind of look to his actual facial features.
He's great looking.
He looks a bit alien.
Yeah.
He'd also be good for someone like Martian Manhunter.
No offense intended. Ugly bastard.
But no, I do think he'd be a really good fit for Mr. Freeze. I know that you and I discussed this at one point in the past, and you thought Ralph Fiennes would be a better fit. I think Ralph Fiennes would be a really cool fit too, actually. I think he's obviously shown he has the acting capability.
Ralph Fiennes,
he's arguably a better actor than Benedict Cumberbatch.
I don't even think it's up for argument.
No, I think it is. I think Benedict Cumberbatch, everything I've seen Benedict Cumberbatch do is amazing. So, but that said, I personally, without doubt, would choose Benedict Cumberbatch. So yeah, we'll get into how we would handle these characters now in their story, in their respective story, because I feel like that's a bit more of a intriguing concept to tackle, and that will be our third topic. So, Kyle, how would you handle the movie?
So instead of having Batman's origin story play out like it usually does, I would try a much more original take of incorporating his origin story into his psychedelic visions that the Scarecrow gives him.
I think that would be really cool.
That's one of the main reasons I chose Scarecrow. I think the origin story has been done to death with most superheroes. So to have an original take on it through these visions and not have all the information.
Psychotic flashbacks.
Yeah.
Kinda,
And it could be a messed up history too. So we could have a vision of him as a child seeing his dead parents, but then maybe his dead parents morph into other Batman villains, and it's Bruce,
or just
you've killed these people.
Yeah, or maybe they just or maybe he's trying to run away from them, but he's running in place or something like that. And he hears laughing, or he hears gunshot or something that keeps repeating from what killed his parents. I think that
there's a lot you can do with it.
You could really get into the psyche of a character. Something that I actually enjoyed about year one was another aspect of Batman I think that hasn't fully been done is no one's really gotten really in depth into the psyche of Batman and what would actually cause.
Now Nolan tried.
Not into a he did it in more of a realistic take, but I mean in the comic book aspect of what would drive a man, what kind of dark thoughts would drive a man to act in such a way as Batman would, to actually want to become a nightmare in other people's eyes, to actually want to become the physical representation of fear to people. And I think that that's a really interesting concept, and I think if you were to use a villain to try to bring that about, it would easily be Scarecrow.
Yeah. And we haven't really had a proper representation of him on screen yet, in my opinion. But
there's also what you were saying before. Scarecrow would almost strip Bruce Wayne of any confidence he had, because everything Bruce Wayne's built upon his character would be useless against a villain like Scarecrow.
Yeah. Well, you brought up an interesting idea of having him fight a physical contender. So you could have Bane or Killer Croc in a brief scene at the beginning to show that Batman has a certain skill set, but it doesn't work with all of his villains because Scarecrow is a completely different entity altogether. But I would show story-wise, I guess I would go from the perspective of introducing Mr. Freeze for the future sequel. So we talked about a trilogy of movies. I would have Scarecrow in the first one, Mr. Freeze in the second, and
the Red Hood.
Red Hood, yeah. So I'd be introducing Robin within the Mr. Freeze saga, and then the third one I would have the Red Hood. But from a Scarecrow perspective, I would have him testing out his drugs on different patients, and one of his patients would be Nora, Mr. Freeze's wife. So I thought he would literally drive her insane through this medication that he gives through a powder. And I guess I think the condition I'd use for her is schizophrenia, because it's actually like a deterioration in the brain, and Mr. Freeze would want her to return to her normal form. So that would give the whole cryogenic idea, like, I need to prevent any more damage to her brain, so let's
freeze it
let's
now
freeze
until
it.
I can figure out how to fix it.
Yeah. But I would have the development of Mr. Freeze, so you could probably implement his origin story within this first film. But primarily, it'd be focused on Scarecrow becoming more and more psychotic, I guess, and trying to introduce Batman into that psychotic tendency as well, make him feel the same way that Scarecrow feels. So I think having that kind of plot line would be interesting, and then Batman can interfere because he hears about what's going on at Blackgate or.
Any idea on how you would have Batman overcome this kind of more psychotic enemy? I personally don't know how you would defeat an enemy such as this, but obviously Batman would figure out a way. He's Batman. But anything off the top of your head?
I'd probably focus more on his intelligence side.
Yeah.
Because what you said before is that he's supposed to be the most intelligent man in the DC world.
Yeah. Some people might argue that Brainiac is more intelligent, but he's not really a man. But he is definitely the most intelligent human on Earth.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe he could figure something out, in psychosis himself, or maybe he could maybe he could look into Scarecrow's history and kind of do like a backward jab with psychotic shit against him, It definitely would be a really cool story that hasn't been really touched on. It touched on it a little in the Arkham games. If you haven't played Arkham
Asylum is when he's best.
It is one of the coolest things I've done in a video game when you're running a Scarecrow, just going into the morgue and stuff like that, and then it's all dark and stuff.
Really cool sequences.
Yeah.
There's it leaves a lot up in terms of options, not even just from a writing standpoint, but from a visual direction. There's a lot you can do with making Scarecrow's world come alive and make it really cool and fascinating. And
Gotham is a really creepy city too, so you could play a lot into the, even just like the structures themselves and stuff in the streets and stuff, and that would really play into the character of Batman, why he is the way he is, how it's affecting his psyche and stuff. It'd definitely be a really cool story. I would love to see it. So anything else you want to add?
Well, that's just pretty much it. So Mr. Freeze would develop because of what Scarecrow's done to Nora, and then that would set up the second movie. But it would be close-ended enough to, if there was never a sequel, to feel complete.
Yeah. Which is unfortunately something that a lot of writers miss on. They miss that set. Alright, my story, before I get into my story, I just want to give a little shout out to what almost was, because I really think Hush is a character that should be done in a movie, and I almost chose Hush. I came really close to choosing Hush. And if you don't know who Hush is, just go do a little bit of research on him, you'll be like, this character's fucking cool. Like, why the fuck haven't they touched this character yet? But I'll just stay away from that. Maybe we'll talk about that on a later date. So yeah, my Mr. Freeze story. I would like to do kind of I would like to do a story based around the idea that the kind of conspiracies that are somewhat proven true in some cases, that pharmaceutical companies kind of lie to keep profits higher.
I wouldn't even call that a conspiracy. I think it's
a conspiracy when you start talking about things like cancer. But I think, there's definitely cases of, other drugs being found. You see it on commercials all the time. It's just like, if you've been using this drug, call this number now because you are liable for money, stuff like that, right? But I do think that to do kind of a piece that's talking about that issue in our kind of world would connect with a lot. It would be open. It'd be a nice open discussion for people to talk about, but it would also work really well within the confines of Batman and Mr. Freeze.
I do like the idea of going after that pharmaceutical as a capitalist company enterprise kind of thing. Like you need to get people thinking about modern contemporary issues, and that's definitely one way to go about it. Introducing it in this really cool stylized Batman movie.
Way for people to question these problems we have in our society, and to see that through just a Batman movie. A serious issue in a non-serious way, right? So yeah, how I would handle it is I would have Black Mask, I would have Mr. Freeze, and Batman. They would be our main characters in the movie. I do something along the lines of Mr. Freeze is working for Black Mask. Black Mask is hiring him to make pharmaceuticals. Mr. Freeze, without his permission, makes a cure for Nora. Black Mask figures it out, though, before he can do it. Takes the only one. And maybe to make it so we can't recreate it, you make it either a race against time or you make it so Mr. Freeze created by accident or something, Like, there are a lot of medical breakthroughs that have happened by accident, right? Like, I'm pretty sure penicillin, if my memory serves me correctly. I could be completely wrong here, but if my memory...
No, penicillin was found.
Was it found?
Yeah, it was found randomly.
Yeah, so, like, you could make it like it was a one-time mistake and he doesn't know how to recreate it without his workings. But Black Mask takes all that from him because Black Mask's like, you're not curing this thing. I'm still making a shit ton of money out of like the little shit, like cancer patients, man. You know how expensive it is? Like I'm not going to say who, but I know someone who has a medical condition and they have to pay out the ass for pharmaceuticals because of this condition that they can't control. And it's just not fair, especially in a country, even in a country like Canada. I can't imagine what it's like for people who live in the U.S., right?
Where you actually have to pay for your own health care.
Yeah, so I think that it'd be a really interesting discussion to put like Black Mask as this figure for the evil corporation that is basically a greedy prick. Because Black Mask is first and foremost, he's not a complicated villain. He's a twisty mustache villain, so you can use him in that respect. Plus, he's funny. He's a funny villain.
You can really go into him being representative of those that top tier 1% capitalist regime.
If you haven't seen, I think it was Under the Red Hood. He's in that, and he's actually hilarious in that movie.
I did enjoy that, right? Yeah.
Remember Black Mask? He was like always beating up his villains and stuff. When he ever got angry at him, he'd like smack him on the back or something like that. Like that, I think you could pull some funny humor out of the character like that. But I would have,
which is something, by the way, that is kind of missing from my movie. I never really thought of the humor aspect yet.
Well, you don't need a lot of humor to make a good movie, and I think
no, you don't.
No. But I do think that Black Mask is a character you can pull humor out of. That said, I would have it come down to, before I get that, I would also have a parallel story going between Batman and Mr. Freeze while Mr. Freeze is having his story with Black Mask, where Batman has experienced loss and Mr. Freeze has experienced loss, and it'd be about how they react to it differently. So obviously Batman has taken this and taken upon himself to never act like the villain. He's sworn to himself he'll never kill, he'll never go down to that level. And
so that's the Batman you're going with, non-killer.
Yeah, he won't let loss affect his decision. Whereas Mr. Freeze is using loss, the potential thinking of losing Nora, as his reason for why he is willing to kill. And I think that'd be a cool counterbalance, and it'd be a cool introduction to Batman playing off of Mr. Freeze into the idea of loss and how it affects our moral issue. And I think it would also play really well into an Under the Red Hood, because me and you both agree Under the Red Hood is one of Batman's better stories, and I would also like to represent that as like a sequel or something.
You thought of the second movie, didn't you? Like
I would probably do Under the Red Hood
in the second.
Yeah.
I would do him in a third.
So yeah, I would have it go along until basically it gets near the end. Maybe do some like comic book thingy where Mr. Freeze sprays Black Mask in the face with this cryogenic shit, giving him a frostbite face and stuff. You know, making his face all shrewd up, and now he's Black Mask and stuff. And you can keep using him as kind of like a comedic villain that Batman beats the shit out of over and over throughout the movies and stuff like that. Whether or not that's what I think that kind of would it be slapstick humor?
Yeah, slapstick humor tends to be kind of violent, but
edgy,
in a humorous
way. I think that would be a good form. Personally, I think that would be good form humor for that kind of story. Then I would also have Batman fail at saving Nora. I would have it come down to a decision where Batman basically has to choose between saving Black Mask. He has the ability to save Black Mask in the moment for Mr. Freeze, or let Nora die afterwards. But because of his moral issue he's gained from his loss, once again playing into the loss, he can't let Black Mask die. Even though he knows Black Mask is this horrible scumbag, this horrible piece of shit, it goes against Batman's character to let him die. So he saves Black Mask. Black Mask maybe destroys all the stuff right after, like he promised he would. Mr. Freeze goes crazy, attacks Batman. You have a big ending fight scene, and then it ends on a very somber note with kind of a feeling of Batman won morally, but there's also a feeling of loss at the end. And it's almost like a humility kind of feeling. I think that, personally, Mr. Freeze is not supposed to be a happy ending. It's always supposed to be a sad ending of a character. And I think that it would also play really well into growing the character of Batman. And then you obviously do what I always wanted to do, and you should avoid this. You should never go panel for panel when making a movie. Zack Snyder has already shown this. But I do love the idea of ending the movie with Mr. Freeze at Nora's grave and then Batman being the only person there to console. I do think that would be an amazing ending for that story, no matter how butchered I just told it, because I'm not really good at putting it together. But I do think that would be just a phenomenal story that could lead into more stories of Batman on how to deal with loss, because like we said, Under the Red Hood is also a story of how you deal with these moral issues and stuff. And yeah, so that's how I personally would handle my movie, whether or not it'd be good or not.
We disagreed on the Mr. Freeze handle, like how we would handle that kind of character.
Yeah.
In my second movie, I thought I'd end it ambiguously.
Leave Nora alive.
So Nora's still alive, but we don't know if she's going to
survive, because
Mr. Freeze is no longer able to care for her. So I kind of liked Nolan's ambiguous ending of Dark Knight Rises or Inception, where maybe she lives, maybe she dies. And how would that affect Mr. Freeze in any foreseeable future? But yeah, I would just end it differently. And I just thought of an interesting note that you could put in your movie. Like in a sequel with Black Mask, I would always think it'd be hilarious if it seemed like there's going to be this big showdown. So he's there, he's like, all right, Batman, you're not going to win this time. And he's getting ready to fight. And then Batman just elbows him or something. And he's not there.
I love those moments with Batman. Batman does it a few times. He's done it with a few villains.
Shocker.
Yeah, he did it with Shocker. That was fucking funny. I've seen it with a few other heroes too. I can't remember who it is. I've seen it in something recent. Anyway, it is a funny little quippy joke, and I do think it would work perfectly with the character of Black Mask. But yeah, I don't know, man. I would love to see Mr. Freeze done right.
All right, producers, you have like layouts for 2 different trilogies, so cracking.
All right, Kyle. So, what is your recommendation for this episode?
I really just love Platoon. Now, this is a movie I rewatched recently, and it gets better with every viewing. And it's not so much what I'd call an underrated movie. I mean, it won 4 Academy Awards. People
have heard of it, but I feel like maybe the more modern generation hasn't heard of it.
No, it's a movie that's 32 years old. I mean,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it came out in 1986. So, but
now you're making me feel old. Like, my hair's balding. Isn't that enough?
But great acting. It's Charlie Sheen at his best before drugs and the prostitutes
and the AIDS. Which are probably coinciding with the prostitutes.
Yep.
Probably gonna get some hate on that comment.
It's got a lot of great actors though. Forrest Whitaker, Johnny Depp was in there briefly. I can never remember his name, but like he plays Julius in Saints Row 1 and 2. Remember, like the voice actor?
Yeah,
he's so awesome though. He's done like a lot of movie roles. And
it's also got Green Goblin in it.
Willem Dafoe's in it, and
he's a phenomenal
Tom Berenger. They're fantastic. It's just great performances. The action's a little bit campy at times, but
it's hard for me to travel back in time, if you will, to watch the 80s movies, because 80s action is just so cheesy sometimes.
Yeah. This definitely has some of that, but it's also got really intense moments, and it shows a much darker side of Vietnam, and instead of your gung-ho American heroes, kind of like it really shows some fractured Americans.
And I feel like that's the most interesting take on war, is when I don't like movies that shy away from the horrors of war when they're movies about war, because that's what war is. It's a horror. It's a horror show. It's not pretty in the slightest. Whether or not the soldiers enjoy the horror or not, that's a whole different discussion. But you shouldn't sway away from the fact that it's a messed up thing to be in. And I feel like Vietnam is one of the worst that has been. If you've done any research on Vietnam, you realize that was a really fucked up war to be in.
I'd say this is the best presentation of that kind of war.
I can't remember Platoon. I feel like I watched it in the past, but I'm definitely going to rewatch it.
Oh, it's messed up. Like it really plays with how war affects these kind of characters. It's also got like a fantastic soundtrack. Like, the like those old 60s tunes, like the tracks of My Tears.
Oh, so it's not like late 60s, early 70s rock and roll?
No. It's more
like every other Vietnam movie ever made?
It's more like soul kind of music.
Well, that's kind of cool.
And the soundtrack itself, like the composition, it's got one of the best main themes I've ever heard. Like I'm downloading it. It's so good. But yeah, that's my recommendation.
My recommendation is called Steve Jobs. You probably heard of this movie. Now, don't mistake this with the Steve Jobs movie.
Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah, starred Ashton Kutcher. I won't watch that movie, and I've heard only bad things.
Oh, he's such a terrible actor. Don't watch any movie with him.
Yeah, I feel bad. He was good as Kelso, man, and that was it.
Oh, I don't even think that much.
But yeah, Steve Jobs, starring, once again,
Michael Fassbender.
And this is the role I was telling you about earlier. He plays an American, and it's obvious he's not speaking like an American in it. But that never bothered me, because he just does such a phenomenal job with the role. And I always thought of Steve Jobs as this kind of like pompous douchebag. Whenever I seen videos of him and stuff, I was just like, this guy's a douche. Like this guy's
especially with how he treated that co-owner. I can't remember his name, but like,
and just like the way like his product and stuff, it was just. Excuse me.
He really had a superior attitude, it seemed.
Yeah. But after watching this movie, I just like, yes, he is a pompous douchebag, but there's just so many more layers to his character, and I never thought I'd be so interested by that character. I always like kind of like avoided it. If I saw him come up on YouTube or something, I'd like skip it right away.
Well, it kind of makes you wonder if how much of it is actually based on his character and how much is Hollywood like.
Well, I've heard that it's pretty true testament to who he was as a person,
Okay.
and doesn't shy away from the things that he did horribly. Like in the movie, spoiler alert, he has a daughter, and he would not recognize his daughter as his daughter until she was like 8 or something, or like 9. And she'd be like in front of him, be like, "She's not my daughter," like pointing at her. And it was DNA proven, like that was his daughter and stuff like that. Like he was a fucking asshole when he was growing up, but it kind of like it builds up, and you see the humanity behind the guy. And yeah, he's not the kind of person I am, or even I associate myself with, but he's still human. And Fassbender really, I don't think you could have done this movie without a good actor, because without a good actor, you would not have been able to feel for this character whatsoever. So yeah, I definitely recommend you watch Steve Jobs. I wouldn't say buy it, just out of like without watching it, because you might not be into more like.
Platoon is an instant buy though. If I would say that.
Well, not a lot of people dig dramas that are more like conversational dramas.
No, this is definitely a thinking man's drama, right?
Like, it's more of like a. If you're watching movies for to have fun and only to have fun and not to think, you're not going to want to watch Steve Jobs. But Steve Jobs was a good movie. I definitely recommend it. And yeah, that's my recommendation for this episode.
I actually kind of wanted to get fans' opinion on whose Batman plot they thought was more interesting.
Yeah. If you guys, I know I didn't really tell mine in the best way because I kind of jumbled upon parts, and I'm not really good at organizing my thoughts as well as Kyle. But don't let that sway your opinion. We all know that my idea.
Oh, go on, you motherfucker.
So yeah, just give your honest opinion.
You fucking asshole.
Whose movie would you rather watch? And maybe you have your own idea. Maybe you thought our ideas were garbage, and just tell us maybe what was wrong. Or,
who would you choose as a villain and why?
So yeah, thanks for watching again. And we'll see you next time. If you have any ideas for the actual show, just send them to us. And, you know where the subscribe button is. You can hit it if you want to. It doesn't matter. Obviously, if you want to watch more, you will. But anyway, thanks for watching.
See you next time.
Peace out, guys.